What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Pancis. If it's your first time, please be sure to smash the subscribe button. If not, thanks for your continued support. Tomorrow actually, this video is going up on Sunday, but tomorrow is September 6th. That marks one complete year of owning this 2004 Saab 9.5 Aero, and today we're going to do a complete review of 1 year's ownership of this old 200,000 mile plus Saab 9.5. You guys are going to be so impressed. Let's rock it. So guys, this car, 2004 Saab 9.5 Aero, 1 year ownership review. This car has been driven 19,000 miles, actually just about 20 if you want to be generous. We're almost at 20,000 miles, but legit miles is about 19,000 miles since we've purchased this car. It was actually gifted to us, so according to the state of New Jersey, I purchased it, but it was gifted to me from another Saab viewer on the channel, so thanks for the continued support. This car has been an absolute dream to have, and it's for multiple reasons. Not only was I able to produce so much content over the last year with this car, but it also has a soft place in my heart because my first Saab that I ever owned, for those of you who have not followed the channel for a while, I've talked about it before, is a 2002 Saab 9.5. It was obviously a little bit older than this model year, but it was the same color exterior, and it was a linear spec, and it had a tan interior, and by the time I was done owning that car, it had 200,000 miles. In fact, it had 195,000 miles when I sold that car, and I had converted it over to an Aero spec and had done all sorts of fun things. So when this car came into my life last year, I said to myself and everybody that I live with that I'm gonna keep this car because it kind of is replacing the 2002, because it came to me at 195,000 miles. And today, 214,000 miles, I think, just turned the clock this morning when my mother drove the car, because if you guys don't know, everybody in my household drives this car. That's why I was able to rack up 19,000 miles on the car in 1 year, and I still drive my other car and the other car and the other car, because there's 3 other cars that I drive on top of this one. So you guys can imagine how much driving I truly do. You can do the math, probably upwards of 30,000 miles a year. But this car, 19,000 miles, we've driven it across the country over to Chicago and back, and I'm sure in the upcoming year we're going to plan some more trips with this car to kind of continue to talk about its durability, how awesome this car is, how nimble it is, how amazing it is, and how easy it is to own an old Saab, because so many of them are finding their place in a junkyard, and it's a real shame. And of course, as you guys know on this channel, we like to save Saabs, we like to keep them running, or at least we have in the last couple of years, and I'm sure, I hope that I encouraged a lot of you guys to do the same, because parts are pretty cheap, and obviously the community is pretty supportive. You got myself and a couple other YouTubers and an awesome forum on the Saab Central to find parts and advice and all sorts of write-ups. So pretty awesome community to keep these things running. So 1 year, 19,000 miles, pretty impressive. Let's run through the list. So for starters, guys, when we got this car 1 year ago, it came to me with a lot of faded paint. It had a bunch of rust on the front hood, and it was a mess. I think the previous owner had stopped driving the car for quite a while, not just because of the cerveza sickness that was going around the world, but just because it was having some oil leaks and he wasn't sure about it, and you know, for the amount of miles and the amount of repairs, it just didn't make sense for him to keep the car, right? So he ended up donating it to me, and of course we took this thing and made it great again. And the first thing we did, besides getting rid of the engine light, which was part of the harness wire here on the ECU, which I found on Saab Central, I fixed that. We got the paint and the body work done, and then from there we started driving the car more and more. And as a car ages, believe it or not, the more you drive the car, the healthier it is for the car. The more the car sits, the worse off it is for the car. So in my opinion, not only did we get an aging car with almost 200,000 miles, which obviously comes with a list of repairs and maintenance, but the fact that the car was sitting for such a long period of time before it came to me, I suspect it also encouraged more failures along the way. So for the first 6 months of ownership on this car, if you guys go back, I'll link it above, we did some extensive repairs on this car. I mean, we ended up having you know, a transmission little issue, which happened to be my fault, but the reason why that started was because the ABS module failed. So it was just kind of like a conga line of things for the first 6 months of heavy driving and heavy repair, and that's kind of like what happened. We had heavy driving, heavy repair. You know, we drove it to Chicago, we ended up losing brake lines. We did the suspension, we did all of the front suspension, we did the subframe bushings. We did everything that could possibly have needed to be done in the first 6 months. And then from there, we started losing some things here and there. We did the radiator. The radiator popped on me right after I got back from my Chicago trip last November. I mean, it was really amazing how I drove to Chicago. I ended up losing a brake line. We fixed the brake line in Chicago. I drive the car all the way back, completely flawless. And then I get back into Jersey the next day. I turn the car on, I race it around town, go to work, come back, and sure enough, that night, 24 hours later of coming back from Chicago, I lost the radiator. So again, it was like another 3 days by the time I got all the parts in and fixed the car, that the car was down. It's such a shame, I know, but it was just like one of those things. So that was kind of like the first 6 months of this car, just kind of working the kinks out, getting the aging stuff replaced, and of course all of the new failures that came along with it. We also replaced some of the HVAC system. I know on the recirculating motor was bad. The gears kind of go bad on those, so if yours is popping and clicking, it's most likely the gear inside of the recirculating motor. So of course, in good fashion, we pulled apart the entire dash and replaced the recirculating motor, and then of course the cabin air filter, since it's all right there. And that was kind of like maintenance as well as repair. And then there's some good things, right? We had some good things. We did the tires, maintenance, but also, you know, fresh tires was really good for this car in the wintertime. All season tires, 20,000 miles later, just about. They're almost ready to be going again soon in the next 5,000 to 10,000 miles. So kind of quick how many times you can go through tires when this car's on the road every day. And of course, it's an aging car, so it's not like you're driving a car with new suspension. But I found a couple times that I brought the car back from the shop that the tire pressures were a little bit higher. So I don't know how long the car was driving with high tire pressures, but obviously that will accelerate wear on your tires. So not my fault, but it's my fault for not checking. How about that? But anyways, we still got some tread left on the tires. I'm sure before the winter we'll go ahead and replace them again 1 year later. But from there, not only so much bad, not so much bad, we go ahead and we did the double din radio. I can guys give you a quick pan inside. Inside we did the double din radio, which in my opinion was one of the best upgrades we've done to this car, because it brought in Bluetooth radio. We have the Android Auto Play, or whatever it is, Apple CarPlay, whatever that stuff is. I don't know how to pronounce it. I use it every once in a while, but you know, you can put Google Maps up on the screen there, so if you're driving long distance, you don't have to hold your phone. So it kind of just brought a little bit more of a modern twist to this car, and you know, since we're driving it so freaking much, you know, it's kind of important to have. So Bluetooth, we can connect music, your cell phone for phone calls, and so that was a good upgrade. And so from there, we've done tires, we've done brakes, suspension, cooling system, complete cooling system, everything. ABS module, every seal has been replaced, gaskets, oil pan seals, everything inside the engine. We've also lost our cassette. We've also lost our spark plugs. We've also lost our bypass valve, which we've done in just the last 6 months. But it's really not so bad, guys. The one thing I forgot is we also just did our fuel filter. It started leaking fuel. So in good fashion, we had a leaky fuel filter. We went ahead and replaced it. So under the hood, you guys can see we've cleaned this engine bay up nicely. It doesn't look like we have 200,000 miles on this car, and that was kind of one of the purposes of bringing this car back to life, was how long can we drive this car for, making it really great, making sure it's reliable, and still keeping it look fairly responsible. So here we are under the hood. We replaced our cooling system overflow container just recently, and all the fluids are checking out fine. We're not losing any fluids anywhere, thankfully. We have no oil leaks, thankfully. And this car has 214,000 miles on it. You guys can tell me all the smack in the world about how terrible Saabs are, and I will stand here in a 10 or 15 minute video, give you a 1-year ownership review, which cost me thousands of dollars in repairs and maintenance, and I'll still tell you that it's still amazing. So, but here's the reality. It is amazing. This car is amazing. The way this car feels on the road, it feels like it just rolled off the showroom. I mean, there's no vibrations on the road. The shifts are smooth on an old transmission. The engine is fairly quiet. The exhaust could be a little bit better, but we'll get into that here in a minute. And overall, it's just the brakes are smooth now that we have fresh brakes, and they're responsive. We don't have any engine lights. We don't have any warning lights. All of the features and the functions inside the cabin work. We have a sunroof that's not broken yet, which is pretty amazing. And yeah, I mean, the car, besides for some rough edges here and there with like some body work and stuff like that, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So here's the thing. This car, besides for let's take out all of the bodywork repair, because let's say you're gonna buy one of these things and you're gonna try to buy one with like decent paint, right? Not in the case that I had it. But let's just say you're gonna buy an old Saab like I did. This without the bodywork, we probably spent about two grand on all of the maintenance and repairs. Now granted, I've done majority of all of the work myself, so it saved me probably thousands of dollars in labor. So it's a really great do-it-yourself kind of a car, and you have to really love the car to do it, and that's kind of like the end result on that. There's nothing else I can say other than you can spend thousands of dollars in labor because you love the car too. I mean, it's up to you. But here's the real fact of the matter. The real fact of the matter is, I believe a lot of the maintenance and the repairs that I did early on this car were not only a sign of age, but also a sign of neglect on the car. I mean, I think the car was really well taken care of before I got the car, and in fact, I know it was. The previous owner owned the car from 110,000 miles all the way out to the 195 when he gave me the car, and I know he took care of the car. He told me he took care of the car. But there were still things here and there that were not taken care of in the last year or two of his ownership, that if it would have just been done as it was going, instead of kicking the can down the road, probably would have saved some money along the way on my end, right? But that's okay. It's all part of the fun. I think it was part of the reason why the car was donated to my channel, which is amazing, right? I have a beautiful car now. But the point of the matter is, I usually see about figure about $1,200 to $1,300 a year in maintenance and repairs on my old Saabs. That's like a typical number for me. And it's still about 50 to 60% cheaper than just like a new Hyundai Sonata or Honda Civic or something that you can lease, not a Civic, but a Honda Accord, that you can you know, lease for $4,000, you know, $3,000 to $3,500 or whatever they go for a year. Maybe a little less, but even if it's $2,500, you're still saving $1,000 to enjoy a car that probably drives a little bit nicer, in my opinion, than those cars. And that's, again, my opinion. But really not so bad. I mean, the bill's a little bit hefty in the first year, but all of those repairs I mentioned earlier transpired on the first 6 months, primarily on the first 6 months of ownership, where in the last 6 months, we really haven't had too much go wrong. I mean, I think we did the spark plugs in the bypass valve, which is not that big of a deal. The fuel filter, not that big of a deal. And then just some little things here and there to keep the car up to date. We've done a couple oil changes. In fact, I'm about due in 1,000 miles again to change the oil. I just changed the oil in July, right before the Saab Owners Convention, and we're here in September, and in probably about a week or two, we'll be needing another oil change. So besides for an oil change every 2 months, based on 19,000 miles in 1 year, it's really not that bad. So yeah, the last 6 months have been pretty phenomenal with this car. Everybody's enjoyed it, and I think, like I said earlier, once I worked through all of the kinks and some of the aging stuff that needed to get done, here we are again with the clock reset. And for the most part, I don't really believe the next year of ownership on this car is going to be that big of a deal in terms of dollar amounts and repairs. Now, that being said, I hope I didn't jinx myself, but I do have some things that I want to do to the car. So those are the questions I'm sure some of you guys were asking in your head was, well, you have 1 year of all this stuff, like what's next? So here's what I think is next. I think this car, in terms of performance, is already at a stage 1 tune based on what the previous owner had told me. And I don't think I'm gonna touch any of that. I don't wanna, this is an older drivetrain, it's an older engine, the car's really reliable right now the way it sits, and I wanna kinda keep it that way because I'm not the only one that drives this car, right? Like if my mother is driving this car on a 2-hour commute sometimes, or doing whatever she does, who knows, I don't ask. But whatever it is, she'll drive. Like I want her to be able to enjoy the car and not have to worry about my performance upgrades, right? So a lot of you guys are asking about that, and one of the things I do want to do in terms of a performance upgrade is the exhaust system. I think the exhaust system on this car, if you guys recall, I put the center muffler, I cut the center muffler out because it was all rusted, and I ended up putting just a straight pipe in there, and like the car is like on the highway, like you can hear like a nice growl, you know, like it growls. And I think it'd be kind of cool to get something like a cat back in there, maybe redo the front downpipe and kind of reseat everything, freshen everything up, because you know it sounds a little crappy sometimes, even though it sounds kind of good on the cold startups in the rear muffler. But it would be nice to get a full cat back system in here and just kind of freshen up the exhaust. So that's one of the major plans that I would like to do in the next couple months of this car, besides for keeping it maintained and keeping it running on the road. And yeah, 214,012 miles, and here we are. She still sits at 30 miles to the gallon on the highway if you're cruising it nice. And that's what this car is all about. That's what it has become in this household, and pretty awesome to have. And I hope you guys over the last year really enjoyed a lot of the content. I think this car produced quite a bit of content for me. In fact, more than I expected it to when I first got the car. But that's, I guess, a Saab for you. I don't know. I mean, I talk smack, but then I love them, right? So I'm sure all of you guys can relate to that. And so yeah, that's it. I'm gonna leave you guys off on that. That was a 20-minute review of what the last year of ownership has been with this car, and overall it's been phenomenal, and do not regret one bit, and very thankful that this car landed on the page in a form of a donation. So thank you for that. And one of my videos was supposed to go live on Thursday, yesterday, but we had that hurricane here in the Northeast. I don't know if any of you guys were affected in the Northeast by the Hurricane Ida. I ended up having a little bit of water in my house, not that much, thankfully, nothing destroyed, but just enough to disrupt my focus on uploading a video. And so that video is going to go live on Tuesday, and we are going to be doing a giveaway, and I will announce it in that video. So if you haven't already subscribed, please smash the subscribe button. If you guys can, follow me at Pancis on Instagram, and I will keep you guys posted in the next video. Thanks for watching, keep sobbing, and stay tuned for more. Thank you.